everyone, welcome to Simple Hobby Homesteading. I'm Jenna and today we are going to make chili. This is my husband's favorite meal, I think, that I make of all time. And so I'm going to show you a really easy chili recipe tonight that you get to control all the ingredients, including the seasoning. So you get to decide how much salt you put in, it's really important because you want to be able to control a lot of those ingredients that affects the taste of your chili. This is a super easy recipe, and even though we do use beer in this recipe, all of the alcohol cooks out. So this is perfectly safe to feed to your children. So let's get started. First of all, what you need 2 pounds of hamburger, and stay tuned after this video at the end. I'm going to give you some tips on all of these different things, some really good ways to save money with all of these ingredients. So 2 pounds of hamburger, and I use an 80-20, 20% fat, 80% meat. You need 1 onion. You can either use a sweet onion or a white onion. My husband prefers the taste of white onions, so we use the white. 1 bell pepper. A jalapeno. This is a huge one. If I have smaller ones, I get 2 jalapenos, and that's up to you as well. To control the heat, if you want to use less jalapenos, go for it. A clove or 2 of garlic. This is a huge clove of garlic, so we're just going to use 1. You need 1 small 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, and if you can your own, then just about 8 ounces of this tomato sauce. And I like to use the fire roasted diced tomatoes, and you can get these store brand or name brand. This just happens to be name brand. A 14.5 ounce can of fire roasted tomatoes, and you can use whatever kind of diced tomatoes you want. If you have your own canned tomatoes, go for it. Now the beans, some people like beans in their chili and some people don't. My husband does, and he especially likes this new kind that we found from Walmart. It's a great value brand. And it's a tri-bean blend. It's got kidney beans, pinto beans, and black beans. In the past, we would always just use light red kidney beans, but he found this 3-bean blend that he really loves. So also you need a can of beans. And then also you need a can or bottle of beer. And once again, you can add as much or as little liquid as you like. If you like your chili a little bit more runny, a little bit more liquid, then you just add some water or a little bit more beer. If you like it a little chunkier without so much liquid, then you can either add a little bit less or just this amount. My husband likes it a little chunkier, not too liquidy, and so he likes just this 1 can. All right, and then seasoning. I make my own seasoning, which is delicious. It is super easy and uses all of the spices that I already buy in bulk. I use these spices in my crock pot chicken recipe, I use them in my jambalaya recipe, and in my taco seasoning, and so I already have all of these seasonings laying around, and they are divine in this chili recipe. So what you need for this chili recipe is a 1/2 cup of chili powder, and then 1 teaspoon of the following: onion powder, paprika, cayenne powder, or cayenne pepper powder I should say, a teaspoon of cumin, oregano, and then a 1/2 teaspoon, and this is totally up to you. And you can use less cayenne pepper, that's that hot pepper. You can use less than a teaspoon of that if you don't like your chili very hot, or you're serving it to small kids that don't like hot stuff. And then also the ghost pepper powder, completely optional. My husband likes heat, and so we do add ghost pepper powder to our chili, and we love this Sonoran Spice Company brand, and I'll link this in the description box down below. So we use a 1/2 teaspoon of ghost pepper powder in the seasonings as well. And then 1 teaspoon of salt, and that's it. That's your seasonings for chili. It is so easy, and you can control the salt, which is wonderful. If you have someone that needs a lower salt diet, oh, it's just a godsend to be able to have your own seasonings made by you. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get this meat browning. We're gonna stick it back on the burner and get that browning. So let's do that. Now, as we go along with my recipes, I always explain everything as if this is your first time cooking, because this might be your first time cooking. With beef, you don't have to add any oil to the pan or anything like that when you're just browning ground beef. You just put it right in a pan and you just start browning it. And if you're going to be right here to keep an eye on it, you can turn that burner on high and just brown it. And you're just going to keep kind of flipping it over and chopping it as you're going with a wooden spoon or with a masher or whatever you use to brown your ground beef. I'm going to hold it on this end. And now if you're going to step away to chop up your onion, if you haven't gotten your onion chopped up yet, then we're just going to put this on a little bit lower setting. We're going to put it on a medium That way we can step away safely without it burning and chop up our onion. So first of all, let's go ahead and chop this onion because we're gonna put this onion with the meat towards the end of the browning phase. Now people say, why don't you put it in right at the beginning? That gives the best flavor. I would, but I use the drippings that I get off that beef when I strain it. I use that either for my chickens or I use it for suet cakes, and so I don't want onion in those beef drippings. And so I'll add the onion right at the end after I've done a strain of the meat. So one thing that I find really handy with onions is one of these choppers. This is a recipe where we are going to chop up these onions in a fine dice, and so your eyes are going to start watering like crazy, and so let's not do that. Let's give ourselves a fighting chance and use some of the technology and some of the gadgets that we have laying around. If you don't have a chopper, then just chop them by hand. All right, onion is set. All right, let's get these cans ready too, so they're ready to go into our pot. Here, one. We got our diced tomatoes. And we're gonna put the liquid and everything with these diced tomatoes. And then our beans, we're gonna hold off on our beans. Open our beer. You can use whatever beer you want. If you're not a Budweiser fan, then of course, don't use Budweiser. Now, as you can see, a lot of that fat is separated from the meat and it's almost completely finished browning. So this would be the time when we take it off the stove, drain it, and then we can add our onions. So let's do that. So to drain the meat, we simply put the lid on with a little bitty slit so that the grease can come out, but the meat stays in. And you're just holding it with your thumbs on both sides. Careful not to burn yourselves with either the steam or the pan. And 2 pounds of meat will get you about 3/4 of a coffee cup, depending on the size of the coffee cup, about 3/4 of a coffee cup of grease. And we like to use that for suet cakes for the birds, and also sometimes I'll drizzle on top of my dog's food at night, which they especially like. And then we're gonna put that meat back on the stove because we're gonna add our onions. The onions that we already chopped up. We're just adding those to our chili. I'm gonna stir those around a bit with the meat. And it just takes a minute or two to get those onions incorporated. And now we're gonna start adding our fixin'. So first we can add our can of diced tomatoes. Next we can add our little can of tomato sauce. And what I like to do, there's still quite a bit of tomato sauce in there. You can see it. So I like to take that beer bottle, pour it into the tomato sauce can, and rinse that puppy out. So we can get all that tomato sauce out. We save these cans for target practice. And then we add all of our seasonings that we've already had mixed up. We're going to take that jalapeno and simply slice it down the middle. Now, not all the way up to the stem. We're leaving just a gap a bit of the stem. We're just going to do like an X. One side and then the other side so that it's like that. We're leaving the seeds and everything in, and then we're just going to plop that into the chili. Plop that right in. We washed that first. And then we're just going to give this all a really nice stir to incorporate all the seasonings. Now we're holding off on the green pepper and the beans until the last 5 minutes of cooking. Otherwise they just get a little bit too mushy. So we're gonna bring this to a nice boil, and then we're gonna put it on a simmer for 25 minutes. And a simmer is simply on low, so it's just got a little bubble, not a rapid bubble, just a little bubble on probably your low setting. Like if you went from, mine goes from low to high, 1 to 10, I would say about a 3 or a 4 would be a good setting on my stovetop, and maybe yours too. Oops, I almost forgot our garlic. So this is where you'd put in a clove or 2 of garlic, and I've got a big clove, so I'm just going to put 1 in today. Here we go. We're going to put a lid on it, put that down to a 3 or so. And then we're gonna stir this about every 5 or 10 minutes for the next 25 minutes. Now, while we're waiting for that chili to finish, or waiting for the 25 minutes to go by, we can go ahead and chop our green pepper. So to chop up this green pepper, I just like to do the top and the bottom. This is kind of a small one. Slice it down this way and then just slice around the ends and get that middle out.
I don't know how I got such a small green pepper. And these insides, these seeds in these middles, they can go in a chicken bowl. Those can be given to the chickens. They love them. I just like to cut these in slices like this.
If you hold your fingers like this, you'll never get your little tips chopped. See? No matter how close I get to my fingers, I'm not going to chop them because my fingers are wrapped under and these knuckles stop this blade up there.
And even get this ends here. Once again, goes to the chicken bowl. And I use for a chicken bowl just a pot. I find that's really handy because it's got handles on the side for me to carry it outside to the chickens. And I can wash it up real easy, and it's got a lid so when the buggy season is, when we got those little gnats in the kitchen or the house or whatever.
Alrighty, now one thing we need to do is rinse off these beans. So I simply take a strainer, pour those beans in, give it a little tap to make sure all the beans got in, and they did. And I'm just going to rinse these off. Give them a little shake, rinse them off. You want to get all that bean juice off of them until the water runs clear. There we go. And then we're just going to add those with our green peppers. And now we've got our beans and our green peppers that are ready to go in the last 5 minutes of cooking. During that 25 minutes that the chili is on the stovetop, don't forget to go ahead and stir that a couple times while it's going. And while we're waiting for that chili to finish, I'm gonna give you a few little quick tips on how you can save money with your batches of chili. First, now hamburger. When hamburger goes on sale, if you have an extra freezer or room in your freezer, buy a bunch of it if you're able to. And you're going to section it off into 1 pound like bowls or 1 pound packages. You can use a simple kitchen scale like this and just weigh out a pound each, and you're going to put 1 pound in one of these Ziploc bags or whatever brand, this is a Walmart brand, freezer bags, and this is a quart size bag. You're going to put 1 pound of meat in there, and then you're going to pat it down so that it's nice and flat, so you have a square of meat. And they stack super well in the freezer, and because they're thin, it's only going to be about this thick. Because they're thin, they don't take long to thaw out when you need to use a pound of hamburger. And because they're in pound increments, it's easy to grab however many pounds you need for dinner or lunch or whatever that night. And so that's what I highly recommend. I do that all the time. When it's on sale, I buy a bunch and then I package it into these quart Ziploc freezer bags, and then I go ahead and freeze it. Another really great tip is buying in bulk with your spices, and I'm going to do videos, for example, like oregano is on sale, a million things you can do with oregano. Well, not a million, we'd be here all day, but a bunch of things you can do with oregano. One thing with my spices, because I do buy in bulk, I put them in these amber colored quart jars because they sit in my kitchen on top of my shelf. They're kind of decorative, but this allows them to stay fresher longer because it doesn't let the light in as bad as those clear jars, and so I can have them out. They don't have to be in a cellar or in the dark or anything like that to preserve their freshness. So I love these amber jars, and you can get these most feed stores like Rural King, Tractor Supply. Of course, I prefer Tractor Supply. I don't know if Walmart carries them. You can buy them online. A lot of times craft stores have them, but these are a lifesaver for preserving your herbs. Now, of course, chili is often better the next day, so make sure you have room in your fridge if you don't gobble it all up that night, that you can save it for the next day, or make a double batch. If you think you guys are really hungry tonight, make a double batch so you can save some for the next day because it is even better the next day. If you don't want to use beer in your chili, you are welcome to use water instead. Not a big deal. It will affect the taste of the chili. It's not going to be as good, but if you have something against beer, that's fine. Use water. 16 ounces of water. Now this beef fat that I pulled off from the meat before I added the onion, I can do a lot of things with this. Either I can add it to my dog's food tonight, just sprinkle a little bit on my dog's food, and they will love me forever and be very happy critters. Or I can add it to this Ziploc bag that I already have of beef fat, and then when I have a bunch of it, I make suet cakes for the birds. I just thaw out the beef fat, and then I mix sunflower seeds and some nuts and some different things in there, and then I make them into freeze them into squares, I should say, and then I put them out for the birds in those suet containers, and the birds love them. It's homemade suet cakes. So I will most definitely have a video later on how to make those. But beef fat is wonderful to save. If you're going to put it in the Ziploc bag, make sure it cools down a little bit first before you add it to your already existing beef fat. So that's wonderful. There we go, folks. It is done. 25 minutes simmering and then 5 more minutes simmering with the beans and the green peppers, and you have a batch of chili that is ready for supper. Yum. Now, some great leftovers with this are just a regular bowl of chili the next day, or over a bed of rice, some simple rice, or even some chili dogs. Put it on top of some hot dogs and have some chili dogs. Really, whatever you want to do, but this chili is the best recipe ever, and it's so simple. So you all enjoy your chili. Bye-bye. Kev, your chili's done. Your chili's done, Kev.